Once I've installed DIADEM Elite, I'll double click on the icon that is here on my desktop to launch the application. If I don't have the icon on my desktop, I can also launch the app by searching for it in the taskbar. Once DIADEM Elite shows up, I would simply click on it to open it. When DIADEM Elite first opens, you will see this screen prompting you to establish a connection with the DIPPR database. There are two options for connecting to the database: SQL authentication or Windows authentication. In this video, we will demonstrate SQL authentication. If you are unsure which option to use, you may need to contact your IT department. In the first box, I need to enter the name of the server where the DIPPR database is located. In the next box, I type in my username for the SQL server. In the last box, I put my SQL Server password. Once I've done this, I can click the blue List Available Database button. Assuming I've entered in the information correctly, a drop-down box will appear where I can select the database I would like to connect to. If this box appears with a list of databases, that means I have successfully connected to the SQL Server. I'll select the DIPPR 801 sponsor database from this list, and then click the blue Set Connection button. Once I've done this, green text should appear indicating that the connection has been successfully saved. At this point, I can simply hit the Close button to close this window. Since this is the first time I'm opening DIADEM Elite, I will click No on the Startup Search window because there won't be any previous compounds for me to load. This is the window for DIADEM Elite. It is the first window you will see each time you open DIADEM Elite. On the left window, there is a list of tools that are available in DIADEM Elite, such as comparisons, graphing, predictions, and so on. If I click on one, a new window will appear for the tool I selected, but we won't demonstrate that in this video. In the center of the window is the search functionality. Here I can search for compounds in the DIPPR database. There are a number of different options for searching the database that are intended to make searching the database as easy as possible. If, for example, I want to search for methane, then I make sure the name option is selected, and then I type methane in the search bar. Once I've typed the name in, I can either push enter or I can come down and select the search button. This will bring up the search results, which include all the compounds which have methane in their name or in their synonyms. Since I was searching for methane, I can go ahead and double click on methane in the search results to open a new window with all the information for that compound. This is the compound window for methane. The first tab you see in this window is the General Information tab, which has some information about the compound such as its name, its chemical formula, the 2D structure, synonyms, and so on. On the left side of the window there is a list of other tabs and windows you can look at for the compound. The tab below General Information is the Constant Properties tab. If I click on it, it will pull up a table with all the constant properties for this compound. By default, when you open this tab, it will display the accepted value for each constant property for this compound. For example, I can look at the normal boiling point, the heat of combustion, the autoignition temperature, and so on. There are several columns in this table. The first column has the property name, then the second column displays the value with the units in the third. I can change the units by clicking on the small arrow and selecting a different set of units. If the units I want don't seem to appear in the drop-down list, I can try scrolling down the list as well as down the table to check if there are any other options available. Once I select a different set of units from the list, the value in the second column will be updated accordingly to match these units. The other columns in the table show things like the reference ID, the node ID, the data type, the source detail, the uncertainty, and so on. If I want more details about this property, I can click on it in the table. It will show up in the gray box at the bottom of the window. These details include the reference information, node information, and the definition of the property. At the top of the table are two drop-down boxes. One lets me filter the table by a certain property, and the other lets me filter by acceptance. For example, if I wanted to see all the critical temperature data points for methane, I would select critical temperature from the first list, all values from the second. Now the table shows me all the data points for critical temperature, including the accepted value, the not used values, and the unevaluated values. It would also show rejected values if there were any. The next tab in the compound windows is the Temperature Dependent Properties tab. This tab contains the correlations for temperature-dependent properties such as liquid heat capacity, vapor pressure, and so on. The first column gives the property name. The second column has the value for that property calculated at the temperature specified at the top of the table. As in the Const Properties tab, the third column has units that can be changed as desired. The remaining columns give more information about the correlation, such as the equation number, the values for the coefficients, the min and max temperatures for the correlation, and the uncertainty. As in the Const Prop tab, I can see more details by clicking on one of the correlations. These details appear in the lower part of the window. Here I can see the info for the correlation, the equation being used, and any notes about the correlation. Additionally, in the bottom right box, I can calculate a range of values from the correlation. To do this, I select my temperature units, then I set the range of temperatures and the number of points. If I'm having a hard time seeing this table, I can adjust the size of the boxes in the Details section. At the top of the correlation table, I have a drop-down box that I can use to only show a specific property. Next to this box are a series of boxes where I can specify a temperature. The temperature I specify here will be the temperature used to calculate the value shown in the second column of the table. This drop-down box, which is blank by default, lets me choose the temperatures of a specific property such as the melting point or the normal boiling point. If I choose one of these, the temperature updates accordingly. If I pick a temperature outside of the correlation's temperature range, the value is printed in red. I can also manually type in a temperature of my choosing. The final box lets me choose the units for my temperature. The final tab I'll demonstrate in this video is the Temperature Dependent Data tab. This tab contains all the raw data for the temperature-dependent properties that were used in regressing the correlations in the TDEP Properties tab. At the top, I can use this drop-down to select which property I want to look at. When I first select a property, the only sets showing are the accepted data sets. These data sets are the ones that were used to regress the correlation for that property. I can show more data sets by using this drop-down. Now I can see all of the vapor pressure data sets that are in the database. I can also filter by data type using this drop-down. Now I'm seeing all the data sets containing experimental data. Like the previous tabs, I can see more details about a data set by clicking on it. Details are shown in the gray box at the bottom. To see the individual data points in a data set, I have to click on the box in the far left column. Data points show up in a table at the right of the window. I can select several different data sets at once to view their data together. In this table, I see the temperature for each data point, the value of the point, its percent deviation from the regress correlation, the acceptance, and the ID number of the dataset it belongs to. The set ID numbers can be seen in the far right column of the datasets table. Finally, I can change the units for the temperatures and values of the data using these two drop-down boxes. If at any time you have questions about how to use DIADEM Elite, you can always refer to the Help window. There should be a link to this window on the left of every toolbar of every window in DIADEM Elite. Here you can find info about DIADEM Elite as well as instructions for using the various windows in DIADEM Elite.